All right, it was a very slow year for severe weather last year in Oklahoma. We just didn't have a lot, and speaking for me and everybody I know, thank goodness, I'm as interested in storms as everybody else, but I was glad we didn't have much severe weather. I think everybody needed it, especially around central Oklahoma. There's still a lot of healing going on and people trying to get back to normal, so the slower the better as far as I'm concerned. It was so slow, in fact, we set a record for the lowest number of tornadoes ever in the state. We only had 16 tornadoes in Oklahoma last year, and that's the lowest number ever recorded. The record before that was 17. That was set back in 1988. The average in a year in Oklahoma is 55, and that's how averages work. Some years you have more than that, some years you have less. 145 is the most we ever had. And you can see the distribution of the tornadoes there, how many we had in the different counties. None anywhere close to Payne County up here. Closest one was probably the little 15-second kind of a tornado that we had in December up near Lake Arcadia, just barely a tornado. And of course, we rate tornadoes according to how much damage they produce on a scale from 0 to 5. And 15 of the 16 tornadoes last year were all EF0 or EF1, which they're very weak. They don't last very long. They don't do a lot of damage. And if we're going to have tornadoes, that's the kind we want to have. And that's a picture. That picture there is a picture of one of the strongest tornadoes that we had. That was up in far northeastern Oklahoma and moved up into southeast Kansas. Whenever anybody asks me what tornado season is, I tell them tornado season begins right around January 1st and it ends on December 31st. In Oklahoma, you can get tornadoes any time of the year. It's like making a Thanksgiving dinner. You can make a Thanksgiving dinner in July if you want to, if you got the right ingredients. Well, you can make a tornado in November or January if you want to, if you have the right ingredients together. The majority of the tornadoes that we see in an average year, when we look at the history of tornadoes in Oklahoma, vast majority of them happen in March, April, May, and June. About 80 to 85%, 82% to be exact, of the tornadoes happen in March, April, May, and June. That's what most people refer to as tornado season. But again, tornadoes don't know about the calendar, and they can happen any time that we get the right ingredients together. The last tornado reported in the state was in December in Oklahoma County. What time of day do tornadoes usually happen? Well, again, they've happened at every hour of the day and night. They can happen at 2 in the morning. They can happen at 9 in the morning. 9 in the morning is the rarest time to have a tornado in Oklahoma, although they have happened. The vast majority of tornadoes, about 2/3 of them, happen between 3 p.m. and 9 p.m., and the vast majority of those are clustered right around 5, 6, 7 o'clock. The reason for that is that's when thunderstorms are most common. And the reason thunderstorms are most common is that's kind of the heat of the day. The atmosphere is heated up, the sun has heated up the earth, and that's the hottest part of the day during those spring and early summer months is between about 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the evening. So that's when we have most of the severe weather. But again, tornadoes can happen at any time of the day or night. Of course, on May 20th of 2013, we had the tragic situation of a tornado hitting Moore in Oklahoma City and Newcastle. That started before 3 p.m. That's exceptionally rare to have a tornado, especially a violent tornado like that, happen that early in the day. That's very, very rare to have a tornado happen. And of course, schools were impacted by that. I worry about the kids in schools, but what's more likely to happen and a bigger concern is the after-school activities, plays, baseball practice, field trips, band concerts, graduation ceremonies. That's the time when severe weather is most likely to happen. And that's also maybe the time in schools where you may have a weather radio sitting in the principal's office, but who's in the principal's office at 6 o'clock at night? Probably nobody. So just trying to make you aware that that peak time of day when the tornadoes happen is often a time when we are not at home or we're not paying attention or we're off doing things or maybe not in a situation where we can get information. Okay, main question that we get this time of year is what the spring going to be like. Is it going to be as slow as it was last year, or how many tornadoes are we going to have? The answer, I'll give you the exclusive answer, nobody knows. People can tell you, I could give you a number, 13 and a half, 60, 280. None of that means, I have no scientific basis for making that forecast. Nobody knows how many tornadoes we're going to have this year. Yes, last year was a record, so we had the fewest tornadoes ever recorded in the state. If I had to guess or bet, I would bet we'd have more than that this year, but we could have less. There's no way to know. I will tell you there will be tornadoes. I will guarantee there will be tornadoes in Oklahoma this year, and it only takes one. If that one hits Stillwater or wherever your house is or wherever your family lives, it doesn't matter if that's the only one the whole year. It's going to be a bad year for tornadoes. So what we want to do is get ready for one tornado and not worry about how many we're going to have, because it doesn't really matter. So getting ready, this is what we're doing this time of year, all of us, whether you're a storm spotter, whether you're just a citizen here, it's time to get ready. Hopefully we're done with winter for a while, and we're moving into springtime, and this is the time where we need to start thinking about what to do. Every bit of advanced planning, every minute that you do of advanced planning starting right now will make the situation, if you ever have to take shelter from a tornado, or your family ever has to take shelter from a tornado, it's going to reduce the amount of stress and anxiety that you have. It's going to make you be able to act faster. You're going to be safer, and you're going to have more peace of mind. There are more people now than ever after what happened in 2013 that are terrified of tornadoes and severe thunderstorms. Lots of people are fascinated by them. Lots of people are terrified by them. Every minute of preparation that you can do now will increase your peace of mind, and it will make it easier for you to take shelter when the time comes. We heard stories from 2013. I've heard stories even further back than that of kids who had bad situations. Their house was not hit by a tornado, but they went through a situation where they were forced to take shelter from a tornado, and that had more of an impact on them than the actual storm itself did, because their family was not prepared. They were running around screaming. They had to go in a dark cellar that had water in it, and there were spiders and all kinds of things. Sometimes taking shelter can be more traumatic than the storm itself. So think about that. Think of every little bit that you can do right now to prepare, the better off we're all going to be. One of the first questions you need to ask yourself is, where is your shelter? Where are you going to take shelter if a tornado is moving toward your home or business or wherever you happen to be? That's the number one question, because taking shelter in the right spot will save you from a tornado. If you do the right thing, if you're paying attention, you get the information in time, and you take shelter, you're going to be okay. This is a picture I took in Moore a couple of days after the May tornado. This is a garage floor storm shelter, and this is exactly what it looked like after the tornado. They haven't moved anything really. And that storm shelter was full of people. There were people crammed in that shelter and survived. They opened that steel door somehow and got out. So having a shelter is the most critical thing to think about this time of year. When you're picking out a shelter, when you're thinking about what you're going to do at your house, you also need to think about what you might do at work, if you're at church or school or Walmart or wherever. Three main things. There's three different levels of safety that you need to remember. The most safe place is either in an underground storm shelter, a storm cellar, a safe room, which is an engineered concrete or steel above ground shelter, or a basement. That's the best place. Actually, the best place to be is in Arizona or something. Just leave Oklahoma until July comes and then come back. But most of us can't do that. So the best place to be in a tornado is in one of those places. Most of us don't have that place. How many people have a storm shelter? How many people have one of those things at your house, or you have access to it, or you could go to it? Okay, not a few. Most of us don't. Most of us are going to have to go to Plan B, and Plan B is usually okay. Plan B is usually good enough, the lowest floor of a sturdy building. I have no idea if this building has an underground shelter, but if there was a tornado right now, first of all, I'd probably be fired, because I didn't know there was going to be a tornado tonight, but hopefully there wouldn't be. I'd probably be going for the restrooms or some little small room in the middle of the building here. The lowest floor of a sturdy building, putting as many walls between you and the tornado as you can. That's going to take care of you in almost every situation. The bad places to be, these are the top three, all tied for first place: mobile homes, vehicles, outside. There's other bad places too, but those are the most common places. Those are the most common places where people are killed in tornadoes typically, especially mobile homes, especially vehicles. So determining where your shelter is in your house, for example, there's no way I could tell you exactly where that's going to be. You're going to have to look at your house. your floor plan, wherever you live, if it's an apartment, if it's a mobile home, it's wherever, you're going to have to look at your own situation and determine where that safe place is. This is one example of a house. There's tens of thousands of floor plans out there for houses. A couple of things that come to mind first. I talked to so many people, and their tornado safety plan involves getting a mattress and getting in the bathtub. Is that a good thing to do, you think? The correct answer is, it depends. There's nothing magical about a bathtub. There's nothing magically safe about a bathtub that makes that a good place to be. It's not that it's heavier than everything else and it holds you down to the ground. It's not that there's anything special about it. The reason a bathtub became a popular place to go is because when that really got popular was when bathrooms used to be small little rooms in the middle of a building, in the middle of a house. Back then, a lot of the bathrooms didn't have skylights, and they weren't on corners of the house with windows and things like that. So this particular house, this floor plan has got 3 bathrooms. There's a master bathroom there, there's a bathroom there, there's a bathroom there. None of those are good places. Why? Well, they all are on outside walls, and they all have windows. There's nothing magically safe about a bathtub. It's just like there's nothing magically safe about a hallway in a school. Some hallways in schools are the perfect place to be. Some hallways in schools are not. It depends on where the hallway is. So there are no absolutes as far as bathtubs and hallways that will always protect you. What you need to do to protect yourself is to get as far away from the outside as you can, put as many walls between you and the outside as you can. So where would you go in this house then? Anybody see anything that might be an option as far as a safe place to be? Utility room? That's probably what I would pick, not knowing anything else about the house. Utility room looks like it's a small room. If you could shut the doors, I'm not sure what the doors are like, but that's about as good as it's going to get in this house. There may be a closet right there that might do something. There might be a pantry right there. But anyway, you're going to have to walk around your house and look and see. Some of us don't have a good shelter. Some of us have a wide open floor plan, and there's really not an absolute safe place to be. But it's all relative. You have to do the best you can with what you've got. So when you're looking around the house trying to find a shelter area or a safe area or wherever you might be, what you want to do is avoid outside walls, doors, and windows. You want to be inside, put as many barriers between you and the tornado as you can. Things that might be shelters, depending on your house, a small closet, an interior bathroom. We have in our house, we have an area under the stairs that's kind of our secondary tornado shelter, kitchen pantries. Just depends on your house. So again, you have to know that and look at that yourself. Okay, mobile homes. Where's the best place to be in a mobile home in a tornado? There are none. Mobile homes are easily destroyed by a tornado, even by a weak tornado. This was the Lone Grove tornado back several years ago. It hit in February. This is what was left of a mobile home, and this was one of the more recognizable pieces of mobile homes that we could take a picture of. Most of them were just twisted balls of metal wrapped around trees. Mobile homes, even if they're tied down or strapped down, are not safe in tornadoes. They may not even be safe in very strong thunderstorm straight-line winds. So mobile homes are not the place to be. A bathtub in a mobile home is bad. A hallway in a mobile home is bad. A small interior room in a mobile home, none of that is good. Get out of the mobile home and go find better shelter. You're going to have to do that early, though. We'll talk about that in a second. So let's say you've got a shelter at home. Let's say you're one of the fortunate ones that have an in-ground storm shelter in your garage, or one of the old Twister Wizard of Oz scary storm cellars out in the backyard. You can't just go run and jump in that thing when the first tornado warning is issued in April sometime. While it's been winter and fall and early spring, there may be new residents in that storm cellar that weren't there before. So you got to go make sure that's cleaned out. This is the storm shelter in my garage at my house. That's a vacuum cleaner. I'm never going to be home when the tornado happens, so my family depends on that storm shelter being cleaned out. There's spider webs, there's dead mice, there's all kinds of stuff we found in there. So they're not going to be too happy with me if they have to get in there when they have company. So clean that out. This is the time to do it. This is the time of year to start thinking about that. If this is not my house, but I have closets that look like that, if your shelter is in a closet in your house, you got to make sure you can get in that closet. And when the tornado sirens or the outdoor warning sirens go off, that's not the time to start cleaning it out. You got to do that when the outlook comes out. If there's tornadoes expected 2 days from now, that's the time to clean the closet out. Maybe make sure that you can get to that shelter quickly. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are still with us today, who are alive today, who survived the May 2013 tornadoes on the 20th and the 19th and the 31st because of their neighbors. Their neighbors saved their lives because their neighbors let them take shelter in their storm shelters. We heard so many stories of a house with no shelter. The neighbors either planned it in advance that, hey, if there's a tornado, you can come and sit in my shelter. Or we heard stories. I talked to someone who was running to get in their truck to drive away from the tornado. There was already debris falling out of the sky. They wouldn't have made it. Their neighbors grabbed them and said, we've got room. Come get in our shelter. And that's a good plan. If you've got neighbors that have a shelter, be sure that it's okay if you can use it. You don't want to go knocking on the door when the sirens are going off and saying, hey, my name is Rick and I'd like to introduce myself. I'm your neighbor. We've never talked before, but can I get in your shelter? You really want to do that in advance. Do they know you're coming? Will they be home if the tornado happens? What if they're at work and you need to use their shelter? Can you use it? Can you get to it? Are you on the VIP list where you're going to get top billing and get a spot in the shelter? Or are you competing with a spot with other neighbors? Do they know you have a 65-pound boxer that you're going to bring with you, or an iguana or a cat or whatever? You got to find all that stuff out in advance. Again, finding that out now, laying out a plan, meeting your neighbors, seeing if there's if room for you will make a big difference and give you some peace of mind to know that I've got somewhere to go if this happens. Some of us are going to have to shelter away from home. And, we always say don't drive away from a tornado in a car. We still say that, but I can't tell you to not be in a mobile home in a tornado and tell you not to be in your car. You're going to have to probably get in your car to get away from the mobile home to go find a safe place to be. The key thing of that is you cannot wait until the warning is issued to do it. You have to do it earlier than that. So if you're going to shelter somewhere else, you need to first figure out, before you ever pick up your car keys, where that somewhere else is. Lots of people, we had thousands of people. This is from May 31st, 2013. This is south of Mustang, just west of Oklahoma City. Thousands of people were stuck on the road for hours. Many of them had no idea where they were going. They heard that they needed to drive away because they were going to die if this tornado hit their house and they weren't below ground. They panicked. They got in their cars and drove aimlessly and ended up somewhere down near Pauls Valley or Chickasha or Lawton, looking for hotel rooms, running out of gas, things like that. This was very nearly a major historic disaster had that tornado not dissipated. We would have had hundreds of people that died. Lots of people, they just drove to be driving somewhere. Don't get in your car and drive anywhere unless you know where you're going. Does your community have public storm shelters? Most don't. Most areas don't have public storm shelters. You need to know that right now. Emergency managers are here from all the different communities. These are the people to ask about that. You need to know that most public buildings are not tornado shelters. People get in their cars and drive to the hospital, drive to the library, the city hall, the fire station, the mall, and they think that's a public storm shelter. None of those are public storm shelters. We had 1,100 people show up at our office on May 31st of 2013. Our building is not a tornado shelter for anybody. I mean, we've got an area that we could go to, but there's nothing about our building that makes it safe. So before you get in your car and drive anywhere, you have to know where you're going. You have to find out if there is a shelter that you can go to. And most importantly, you have to go before the warning is issued. If you wait until there's a tornado warning out for your county or until the sirens are going off, you've waited too long. So you need to do that early. Other things we always talk about: getting your family ready, having a disaster supply kit. Sometimes I think this holds up people. Some people think, well, I don't have the money, or I don't have the room. How am I supposed to have a gallon of water for every person in my family? Where am I going to store it? It doesn't really have to be that complicated. We still want you to have that kit. But I'll be quite honest with you, my family, we don't have that kit. We don't have a gallon of water for every person in the house. What we do have is for the people in the house, they have a bag or a backpack, and each family member has one of those. And in that backpack, they have their personal stuff that they need. They have water, They have snacks. They have their own flashlight. They have whatever they want to take to the storm shelter with them, and to, so that's our kit. We have individual kits that we use for that. But we always talk about, prescription medication and a radio and a flashlight and batteries and water and food. But other things to think about when there's a tornado watch out, or when there's an outlook for severe weather later today, be sure all your cell phones and mobile devices are fully charged up. Make sure you know where your charger is so you can take your charger to the shelter with you. You may not have an outlet to plug the phone into a charger in the shelter, but if your home is destroyed, you're going to wish you had that charger with you to completely, to keep charging your cell phone. If you have pets, dogs, cats, or whatever, it may seem like that you're going to be able to take your dog or your cat and hold them as you sit in the shelter for 10 minutes, and then you're going to come out and everything's fine, and that's probably what's going to happen. But in the unlikely event where the worst case happens, how long are you going to be able to hold on to that dog or cat as you're going through rubble and things like that? It's scary, and it's kind of sad to think about the worst case, but that's kind of what we have to do. If you're ready for the worst case, you'll be ready for anything. So a dog carrier, get your leashes together, get your pet carriers together. The emergency manager at the University of Oklahoma has now purchased hundreds and hundreds of dog leashes, because on May 31st, people brought their dogs with no leashes, and they were running wild in buildings and leaving messes, and people weren't cleaning them up. So who would have ever thought that you would need dog leashes as part of an emergency kit? But we had so many pets that were lost, separated, I should say, in those tornadoes. You have to think about your pets too. If your pets have medication, they need food and water too. And if you're one of the people, if you do go to a shelter, if there is a public shelter, remember you're responsible for your animal. We just heard so many horror stories about things that happen with that. Now, if you really want to be ready, these are some pro tips that we got from people that lived through some of those tornadoes. Helmets. Helmets are a proven way that will save people's lives in a tornado. So if you or your children have helmets, bicycle, motorcycle, football, baseball, cricket, polo, whatever kind of helmets you might have, put them on. Have them handy. Don't go scrounging around for them when the sirens go off. Know where they are before the warning is issued. Put them on, strap them on. That saved lives. Other stories, I heard some interesting stories that hearing protection. I never would have thought you'd need hearing protection in a tornado, but people that have like a metal storm shelter or a metal safe room or something above ground, so much stuff was hitting that, people actually had hearing loss. It was so loud from things hitting that. So again, this is your advanced kit of supplies. Goggles and gloves and dust mask would be very helpful after. If you come out and there's debris everywhere, that would be very helpful. Having some type of alerting device to let authorities know or signal somebody that you're down there. This is when you're going to need the hearing protection. If you carry one of those down into a metal shelter and let that thing go, make sure you got that hearing protection on. But, that's, people, you may not hear people yelling, but a whistle, an air horn or something like that might be good. Most communities a lot of communities have storm shelter registration programs. So if you have a shelter in your house, you can register it with the city. Stillwater does do that. You can register with the city of Stillwater, and they know where your shelter is. They will post it in the newspaper and encourage all your neighbors. No, they don't do that. That's just so they know where you are. So if there's a tornado, they'll know where to come look for you. And what else? Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. A lot of people forget about dressing appropriately for sheltering in a tornado. You may think, what are you talking about? Well, imagine, most of our tornadoes happen in May. And on a tornado day, it's probably muggy, humid. It's probably 85 degrees with a high dew point, and it's really humid. So you're probably, people may be running around in shorts and flip-flops and tank tops. If you crawl out of a shelter into that's not the proper clothing to be wearing. My family, when there is a threat of a tornado, and especially when they're getting ready to go to the tornado shelter, they at least put on long pants and put on real shoes. Sometimes a long sleeve shirt or a jacket, a sweatshirt or something. Again, it's humid, 85 degrees, but when you come out of the shelter, it may be pouring down rain, windy, and 60 degrees. So, there's other things too. I've already mentioned gloves and jackets and things like that. But you have to dress for the worst case. And so this is part of our tornado safety plan. When a warning or when we think a warning might be issued, they get ready. The shoes are there. They don't have to go running around the house looking for them, and that's their kind of their outfit for taking shelter from a tornado. All that's well and good. Having a plan is important, and knowing what to do in advance is important. But getting the warning and getting the weather information is important too, because knowing when to enact that plan, knowing when to take shelter, is an important part of the plan. If you don't know a tornado's coming, or you don't know there's a warning, or you're sound asleep, then it's not going to do you much good to have that detailed safety plan. So using weather information that's out there. We really recommend that everybody has at least 3 ways to get a warning. 2 ways, 3 ways. I say 3 ways. Some people say 2 ways. 3 ways to get a warning. And there's a lot to choose from now. The menu used to be pretty short. It used to be sirens and weather radios and the TV. Now there's so many different ways to get a warning. It's important to have at least 3 ways to get a warning. One of the most common things we hear now is there's so many apps that people have on their phone. People say, well, I've got 6 apps on my phone that'll give me weather information. So I've got twice as many ways as I need, so I'm good to go. No, 6 apps or 20 apps on your phone counts as just one way, because you have to have different ways that will give you the information no matter what. You have to have a way to get the warning if the power's out, if you have no internet service. I've got all kinds of apps on my phone to get tornado warnings, but none of them worked very well in Oklahoma City when everybody's on their cell phone. The cell service got swamped. I got the warning sometimes 45 minutes to an hour later. So if that was my only way to get a warning, I would have been, in trouble. Your cable TV, if that goes out, your satellite TV goes out, our partners and friends in the TV, our TV meteorologist partners, David Payne and Mike Morgan and Damon Lane, they're really nice and very powerful people, but they can't wake you up in the middle of the night. They can't turn your TV on for you, and they can't talk to you if the power's out. You're not going to be able to see them. So think of ways that you'll be able to get warnings in all those different situations. One of the ways that we still recommend that's at the top of the list is weather radio. People think of weather radio as, well, that's kind of old school. You got to pull an antenna up, and it's a scratchy VHF radio broadcast. That's kind of old-fashioned. It's still very, very critical. There's a transmitter right here in Stillwater, another one up toward Ponca City. This area is pretty well covered by weather radio. Weather radios are available for less than $30, and they saved multiple lives in the May 2013 tornadoes. Everywhere from a bowling alley that got the warning through a weather radio to people that had worked the night shift and were sound asleep when the tornadoes hit, the weather radio, or they would have been sound asleep had the weather radio not waking them up. If you're looking for a weather radio, they're available at Walmart, other outlets, they're online. These are 3 things I recommend that you look for in a weather radio. It needs to have a warning alarm. Not all of them do. Some of the little hand crank radios that you can buy that are a little bit cheaper, some of those don't have a warning alarm. So you can turn it on and listen to the weather, but you may not get that siren to sound to let you know that there's a tornado warning. You definitely want to get one that's programmable, because the Stillwater NOAA weather radio transmitter covers, I don't know how many counties, 6, 8, 10 counties, a big area, like a 40, 50-mile radius around Stillwater. So if you don't want to get waken up at 2:30 in the morning for a warning in Pawnee County or somewhere way far away from here, you need to get one that's programmable. That means you can program that radio so it only makes a sound, it only alarms if there's a warning for Payne County or Lincoln County or Logan County or whatever county you're in. And also be sure to get one that has a battery backup. That will keep it working when the power's out, and that's one of the key things, because the power's going to be out probably when there's bad storms in the area, so you want to be sure that you have that capability. There's all kinds of models. There's ones that are the size of a pack of gum that you can stick in your pocket, your backpack, your purse, your car, your truck. There's ones like this that'll sit on the nightstand or in your office or whatever. So we really, really highly recommend that weather radios be a part of your plan. Outdoor warning sirens. Hey, look, there's Rob. Outdoor warning sirens are important. But notice I capitalized the word outdoor. That's because sirens are intended, in every community I know of, to be heard outside. They're not really intended for people to hear inside. People complain, well, I couldn't hear the siren in my house, or I was asleep and the siren didn't wake me up. Well, that means it's working like it's supposed to. It's not supposed to wake you up. The sirens are for people that are outside, and that's what they're intended for. So a siren can be a life-saving device. It does save lives. They're important, but don't over-rely on these. I've literally talked to people, and I'm not making this up, who knew there was a tornado watch, knew there was a tornado warning. They're watching TV. The TV meteorologist says the name of their town, the part of their town that they're in, and says a tornado's on the ground coming toward them. The power goes out. They see debris in the air. They sit on the couch and don't move because the sirens haven't gone off yet. It's as if people think that the sirens are the magic signal that opens the gates to let the tornado come into town. You know, the tornado cannot happen until the siren sounds, and that's just not true. Every community has their own siren policies. Stillwater, I got this afternoon. The website has a great video there to explain what the sirens mean, what you do when you hear them. Most communities don't sound an all-clear signal because that's confusing. Stillwater doesn't do an all-clear, knowing when they're tested. So the siren policy in Stillwater may be different than the siren policy in Chandler or in Guthrie or in Cushing or in any other little town. So find out in your town if you have sirens, when they're sounded, what they mean, and what you're supposed to do when you hear them. There's other things. If you've got a smartphone or a mobile device or something called wireless emergency alerts, these are relatively new. And if you have a phone that's capable of receiving these wireless emergency alerts and your cell phone carrier provides them, most cell phone carriers do now, this will come to you automatically. If you've got the right kind of phone with the right carrier, you'll get these wireless emergency alerts automatically. You don't have to sign up or subscribe or do anything. If you don't want them, you can go in and turn them off. There's a spot inside your settings where you can go turn them off. But these are warnings that you will get no matter where you are. So if you're driving on the turnpike between Oklahoma City and Tulsa, you have no idea if you're in Lincoln County or Creek County or Tulsa County. It doesn't matter because if there's a warning issued for that area, it will broadcast the warning to every cell phone within range of those cell phone antennas that are in the warning. So it's not like it's tracking you. It doesn't know that where you are. It's just a broadcast to everybody in the area. And these things have saved lives in recent years too. Most of us get weather information from our friends on the local television stations. Say what you will about the TV coverage of severe weather here. It's, in my opinion, you have to try really hard to not know that severe weather is possible on a severe weather day. We heard of people that said they didn't have any idea there was going to be severe weather on those days back in May of 2013. To me, you have to work hard to not know. The TV stations here are the best anywhere in the world in covering severe weather. They have helicopters, they've got chasers and trackers and radars and people sending pictures in, and it can be a little overwhelming, quite frankly, sometimes if you're new to the area. I talked to a lot of people that just moved here, and they say, well, what station do I watch? What do I do? And you just have to find a station you trust, that you like, the personalities, all the equipment's pretty much the same. There's different personalities of the meteorologist and the storm chasers, and they all have helicopters. Pick one you like. I've talked to more than one person that just moved here and said it stresses them out just to listen to the TV during severe weather. So I said, hit the mute button. You don't have to listen to it. Just watch, because it stresses me out too in the office. We don't listen to it. I'll be quite honest, but it can be stressful. But it's good information. You can't beat it as far as getting pictures and video and things like that. So that can be a good source. But again, they're not going to do you any good if your power goes out. You're not going to be able to see any of that. There's apps. I talked about apps earlier, and this is just a handful of examples of apps that you can get on different Android and iOS or iPhone, Apple devices. There's ones on here this one, IMAP Weather Radio, I think it's called something different now. That costs about $10, I think it does. But that's essentially like having a weather radio on your cell phone. It knows where you are. You don't have to program it. You don't have to know what frequency to dial in. It knows where you are, pushes the warning to you pretty quick. The Red Cross has an app, and I like the Tornado app from the Red Cross. It started off a little rocky, but it's gotten a lot better now. Again, it has location features, so it knows where you are. I've got it on my phone now, so if a tornado warning was issued, well, first of all, I'd probably be fired if there was a tornado warning issued tonight and I didn't know about it and I was in Stillwater, but no, I'm kidding. But it knows where I am, so I would get the warning. I would get the warning if I was in Nebraska or Missouri. It knows where you are based on the location of your phone. So there are many, many apps out there to get warnings, to get weather information. We don't endorse any particular one. And again, these don't do it all. These won't take care of every need that you have. You need to have other ways too. And you can subscribe to subscription services. Your community might have something, a mass notification system, some communities it's called Nixle or Blackboard Connect, or some mass notification system where somebody can push a message out to everybody all at once. So again, find your local emergency manager here in the crowd and ask them if they have that. But like Channel 4 in Oklahoma City has it. There's different TV stations. The Weather Channel has it. A lot of these are free. And again, you can sign up, give them your zip code or your address or whatever, and they'll push a warning to you and wake you up. Social media is a way to get weather information. I would caution you against using especially Facebook to get critical, time-sensitive weather information. We use Facebook and Twitter a lot, and we think it's important to get the word out. And I know there's some great Facebook pages here in this area too that share weather information. But don't over-depend on these. These should never be your main source of warnings, and they should never be your only source of warnings. Facebook, quite honestly, is a horrible way to get tornado warnings. If you like the City of Stillwater Emergency Management Facebook page or the National Weather Service Norman Facebook page, unless you do some special things to ensure you're getting all of our posts, you may only be seeing 10% of what we're posting. So that tornado warning that is the most important warning of your life, if you're sitting and waiting for that to pop up in your news feed on Facebook, you might get it 2 days later, or you might never get it, because that's just the way Facebook does things. We don't understand how they do things. They change it every other week, and it's like a moving target. We try to figure out how to get messages to more people, and they change things. So a lot of stuff goes on in your news feed that you may not know about on Facebook. So if you're depending on Facebook to give you that critical piece of life-saving information, I would really caution against that. We use it, and we use it a lot, and we'll use it during tornado warnings. This is from some of the May 2013 stuff. But we find it's most useful to help get the information out before the storm. So if today's Tuesday, let's say we're expecting severe weather on Friday and Saturday. We're not, but let's say we would use Facebook to try to get the word out to all of our followers and the people that have liked our page. And then we would be asking them or you to help spread that word. People are more likely to pay attention to you posting something on their Facebook wall about maybe severe weather this weekend than they would government office or me or somebody they don't know. So we always ask for help from people to help get the word out. So Facebook is okay for some purposes like that. I like Twitter a lot more. As of right now, they haven't screwed Twitter up, and it's pretty good. It's pretty much a stream of what we're posting in chronological order, unlike Facebook that's all jumbled up. So if you like or have followed NWS Norman on Twitter, you're going to see what we're posting as we post it. And you're going to be able to go back and look at that. And we do a lot of things on there in the days and hours and minutes leading up to tornadoes or snow or whatever else we have there. So I highly recommend those. And there's other great Twitter feeds and Facebook pages out there. City of Stillwater, TV stations, most of the TV meteorologists in Oklahoma City are on Twitter, and most of them are really active, and they'll share information. So it's a good place to get information. One word of caution and about anything on social media, Facebook or Twitter, what I really urge people to do is, especially this time of year, we get into spring, find a reliable local source of weather information that you trust. Pay attention to that, share that, retweet that, repost it, whatever, and let all the other stuff go. We have so many people that post dramatic forecasts, scary forecasts, people that aren't even here. There was a 15-year-old kid in Nashville that had a Facebook page. He's got tens of thousands of followers. He's not a meteorologist. He knows how to make cool-looking graphics, and he'll find the worst possible case scenario from any of the computer models, and he'll post that, and it gets shared thousands of times. He has no clue what he's talking about. He's just trying to get attention and scare people. So if you don't know where the weather information came from, if it didn't come from the Weather Service or Stillwater or one of the local TV stations, my advice is don't share it. Just because it looks scary, looks dramatic, looks official, looks like it may be something important, don't assume that it is. Oftentimes people are just trying to get attention, and when we share things and retweet things like that, we're feeding right into that. Our webpage is a good source of information. We don't have a way to push anything to you from our webpage, but this is a great place to go to find out about weather that may be coming up. That's the URL, weather.gov/Norman, and you can go there and get graphics and discussions and information, historical information. You can go there and look at every Payne County tornado since 1890, and there's you could get lost in there for days with all the information that's there. So all that information, all those different ways to get weather information, what the Weather Service does in working with our partners at the TV stations and emergency management and everybody else is we try to give people as much advance notice about tornadoes and severe storms as we can. And we have a 3-phase approach to that. We issue outlooks, and usually outlooks are talking about something that's days in the future maybe. Watches talk about severe weather events that may be coming in the next few hours, and warnings talk about severe weather that may be coming in the next few minutes. And we'll talk about each of these individually. So knowing where to get those and knowing what they mean is really important, whether you're a spotter or whether you just live here in this area. Outlooks are general. They're not forecasts. They are just an outlook of what we think might happen. We start issuing outlooks for severe weather. The National Weather Service starts issuing outlooks for severe weather when it's 7 or 8 days in the future. So if we see a big event out there 8 days away, we might start talking about it and putting out outlooks. I can tell you for our office, if you pay attention to what our office does, the further in advance we're talking about severe weather, the more worried we are about it, and probably the more worried you should be about it, or more concerned you should be about it. We're pretty conservative, so we're not going to talk about a potential for severe weather 6 or 7 days from now unless we really see something that makes us worry about it. So that's just a little inside trick there. But you can get outlooks from a lot of different sources. The Weather Service produces them. The Storm Prediction Center, part of the National Weather Service, they issue outlooks all the way 8 days into the future. You can get those on their website. They're very technical. If you read all the scientific discussion that goes with them, they're very, very technical. We take their outlooks and fine-tune them for our area. We do graphics on our webpage. We do something called a hazardous weather outlook that has all the details of that. You can get outlooks from your local TV stations. You can get outlooks from the Weather Channel. You can get outlooks from 15-year-olds that live in Nashville who know how to operate a graphics program. Be careful where you get your outlooks from. What is not perfect and what I don't know if we'll ever fix is all these outlooks may be different. For the same day, you may get a different outlook from the National Weather Service versus what the TV stations have versus what the Weather Channel has. This is something the Weather Channel has called Torcon. I love our friends at the Weather Channel, but it's not. You can't just boil that down to one number. I can tell you that the EF5 tornado that hit Moore on May 20th, the Torcon was like a 5 out of 10. It's supposed to be when you get to 10, there's like a 100% chance of a tornado or something. But anyway, I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying use caution with that. Outlooks are available from lots of different places. These are screen captures I did on the morning of Monday, May 20th, 2013. These are the actual outlooks that showed on Channel 4, 5, 9, and Fox 25 from Oklahoma City. And they're all different. Some have 2 levels of risk. Some have 4 levels of risk. You can look at some counties, and on one outlook, a county's in a slight risk, and another outlook, they're in a moderate risk. We're working with the TV stations to minimize this. I can tell you they're going to still do it this spring probably, so just be ready, to be potentially confused. What I tell people is don't get so hung up on what color you're in, what risk category you're in. If you're in a slight, moderate, marginal, enhanced, high, super duper, vicious outlook, whatever category they call it, whatever color they call it, if there's a risk of severe weather in your county during March, April, May, or June, just pay attention. Don't get so hung up on, well, it's only a slight risk here. The moderate risk is over in Pawnee and Osage County, so that's where the big tornadoes are going to be. We're not going to get much here. That's not how it works. So just don't get too hung up on those colors. And don't get too hung up on the lines. Storms don't know where we draw the lines on the map. Some people seem to think that if there is a high risk or a moderate risk of severe weather somewhere, that's going to fence in all the bad storms and they won't come out of there. I mean, storms will go wherever they want to go. Honestly, we're not that good to be able to fine-tune a fine line to say, okay, I-35. If you're west of I-35, you're going to have bad tornadoes. If you're east of I-35, you're not. So if you're at Brahms and Guthrie on the west side of I-35, your chance of a bad tornado is higher than it is in that new gas station on the east side of I-35. No, we can't do it that well. Some people zoom too far in. Just keep in mind, if there's an outlook, imagine that there's very fuzzy edges on all those lines, and just be aware. That's what they're made for. They're not made to scare you. They're not made to promise you things that are going to happen. We've actually had people that have been very nasty with us on social media that, you promised there was going to be baseball-sized hail. We didn't get anything here, and you stink, and I'm like, seriously? You're mad that you didn't get baseball-sized hail? Anyway, give us a break. Outlooks are one thing. Watches come out when we're more certain about where the severe weather may be and what time it may happen. We still don't know all the details, but we've narrowed it down now to part of a state. So this is the tornado watches that came out, or the tornado watch that came out on May 20th. There's a whole bunch of counties there. Is every one of those counties in the tornado watch going to get a tornado? Gosh, I sure hope not. But something's going to happen somewhere in that watch. Almost every time. It's very rare to have a tornado watch where there's not severe weather in there somewhere. It may not be in your backyard. It may not be in your county. It may not be in the county near you. But somewhere in that area, there is a very high likelihood that there's going to be severe thunderstorms or tornadoes. Watches come out, and they're usually in effect for 4 to 6 hours, sometimes a little bit longer, and all they mean is severe weather is possible. When a watch comes out around my house, if it's a tornado watch and it's one of those days we're really worried about, this is when the shoes get put in a spot where they can find them quickly. This is when we get the dog carrier for the dachshund and the leash for the boxer. This is when we make sure our backpacks are ready and the flashlights are in there and the water bottles and granola bars and things like that. That's when we make sure we have our car keys. My wife has her purse nearby, so we're not scrounging around. You don't have to go to extraordinary measures when a tornado watch is issued. It's just getting your stuff together in case you need to go to shelter. Again, you're saving yourself some stress and anxiety and giving yourself peace of mind. Some of the things the Weather Service does, we will upgrade a watch to a warning, like a hurricane. If you see us, we'll have a hurricane watch out for part of the Gulf Coast, and then we'll upgrade it to a hurricane warning. That's not how it works with tornado watches and tornado warnings. They're not related. They are not tied together. So you can have a tornado warning that comes out without a tornado watch ever being issued. You can have a tornado warning that comes out in a severe thunderstorm watch. You can have a tornado warning that comes out without a watch. So you don't have to have a watch before you have a warning. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how we want it to work. But sometimes there's isolated storms, or sometimes the first storm gets going quickly before the watch is issued. So don't wait for a watch thinking that, well, it's not going to get that bad because I haven't issued a watch yet. A warning can happen before a watch. They're not related at all. So don't rely on that too much. We still do things by county, so it's important to know your local geography, your local counties. I still run into people that don't know what county they live in. I don't care how new you are to the area, it's very important to know what county you live in. It's also important to know the other counties around you. So if we're in Payne County here, would you care about, if I told you there was a tornado warning in Osage County, would that get you excited or would you worry a lot about that? Probably not because, well, it's not on this map, but that big county right there is Osage. This is Payne County. Probably that storm's moving away. Most storms move from the west to east or southwest to northeast. So you're probably not going to have to worry about that. If I told you there was a tornado warning in Logan County or Kingfisher County, would you care about that? Yeah, so you need to kind of know what those counties are to the west and southwest of you and even know what the towns are. So I would imagine that, if we start talking about a tornado in Guthrie, that Rob and Kirk's ears perk up. They're probably perked up long before that. But like my family has their trigger towns. So we live in Norman. So if we start hearing Tuttle, Blanchard, Newcastle, Chickasha, all those famous towns where the tornadoes are born and bred, and it seems like if we start hearing that, that means, okay, if this keeps coming, it's coming toward us. Those are towns that get hit before we get hit. So know your local geography enough. You don't have to be a genius at it, but you got to know your county and the counties around you. So when they're talking on television or you hear on the weather radio or whatever, where these watches and warnings are issued, that you're able to know where those are. Warnings are the most urgent message that we issue, and we issue 2 main types of warnings. Tornado warnings mean that a tornado is likely. It's either happening right now or we think it's about to happen. We try to keep the tornado warnings as short as possible in time. We try to keep them as small in area as we can. These are serious warnings. We are very conservative with tornado warnings. So if you hear a tornado warning for Payne County or your county, it means that probably 2 or 3 meteorologists in our office have gotten our heads together and figured out that, okay, we think this is likely enough that we need to issue a warning. We don't just fire those off just because we're bored. A tornado warning means something. Now, you're not going to get a tornado warning you're not going to get a tornado every single time you have a tornado warning, but it is time to act. And if you've done everything right, when that tornado warning is issued, there should be calm, just enacting your plan and going to your shelter. If you're not already in your shelter, that's when you go. You act now. Now, I know good and well, this is Oklahoma. I know that people are going to grab the cell phone and go outside and see if you can see it, get some video, take pictures, post it on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then maybe you'll think about taking shelter. I know how that works because, honestly, that's probably what meteorologists do too. But we try to build in that time for you. So, we don't want you doing that. Sometimes you're going to have 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes before the tornado hits. Sometimes you're going to have 0. The average amount of time that we give you before the tornado forms is 15 minutes on average. Sometimes you're going to get 45 minutes. Sometimes a tornado is going to form, and the only way we're going to know about it is one of the storm spotters here reports it to us, and then we issue the warning. That's not usually how it happens, but that can happen. Severe thunderstorm warnings are issued when we're expecting storms that produce winds of 58 miles an hour or higher, or winds or hail that's 1 inch in diameter or larger. We'll get more into this in the storm spotter training in a little bit. Don't ignore these. We only have one kind of severe thunderstorm warning, so the warning for Payne County that you see, here comes another severe thunderstorm warning. That may be a warning where we're talking about quarter-size hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. That could be the warning where we're talking about grapefruit-size hail and 120-mile-an-hour winds. Both of those storms are going to get the same severe thunderstorm warning. We don't have an, oh my God, we really mean it this time, severe thunderstorm warning. It is the same warning. So if you see the little county turn yellow in the corner of the TV screen and you say, there comes another one, you need to go check it out and see what it is. If you go listen to the weather radio, if you go on our website, if you have an app and you read the warning, we're always going to tell you what we're expecting as far as the hail size and wind speed. This is the sequence of warnings that we issued for the May 20th, 2013 tornado. That yellow shape there, we call that a polygon. That's how the warning is drawn. So we draw where we think, the area that we think will be threatened by the storm. So that yellow severe thunderstorm warning came out first, and then a tornado warning came out about 30 minutes later, and then the tornado developed 16 minutes after that tornado warning came out. The tornado warning is smaller than the severe thunderstorm warning. There's a bigger area that may be impacted by the damaging winds and the hail in a storm. The tornado warning, we try to keep that as small as possible. When we issue a warning, when our forecasters decide that, okay, this storm needs a severe thunderstorm warning, from the time they decide to do that until the time your weather radio or your app is going off or the little crawl is going across the bottom of the TV screen, it's usually less than 60 seconds. We can fire those out really quick. We don't have to type anything. It's all just click, click, click. We draw the warning and send it out. And as soon as we hit the enter button or make that mouse click, it's going everywhere all at one time. So it goes to the Weather Channel. It goes to Channel 459, Fox 25, your apps, the wireless emergency alerts, the weather radio. If you're on NWS chat or those kinds of things, it goes there automatically within seconds. So when we hit the enter button, we see it pop up on all the TV screens in 10 seconds, 15 seconds. So that it's quick and it's instant. So having all those different ways is really, really important. Okay, wrapping up, we're going to take a break here in a second. Taking shelter. You've got a plan. You know what you're going to do. You know where you're going to go. You've got weather information, so you know when you need to do it and you know when to be prepared. Now, what do you do when the time comes? What do you do when it's time to take shelter from a tornado? The fire service has stop, drop, and roll. Now, we're taught that as kids in school. Kids come home, they memorize that. That's easy to remember. This is the best we could do with tornado safety. It's get in, get down, cover up. It's a similar thing. If you can remember these 3 things, if this is all you remember from this tornado safety part of the program this evening, that should take care of you in most situations. That would take care of you if we were in this room right now and a tornado was coming. If you were shopping at the mall or at Walmart, if you were in church, if you were at home, if you were wherever you might be, if you can remember to get in, get down, and cover up, those are the three most important things to know about tornado safety. Get in means to get as far inside a sturdy building as you can. Get down means get as low as you can, get on the lowest floor and get low to the ground. And cover up means cover up with whatever you've got. There's not much to cover up with in here, but pillows, blankets, coats, jackets, backpacks, anything like that. We'll talk more about those specifically. Safe rooms. These are above ground safe rooms that survived in the core of the EF5 tornado in Moore and Newcastle and Oklahoma City. Winds over 200 miles an hour, lots of debris, lots of cars flying through the air. These safe rooms survived. There has never been a real, honest-to-goodness safe room where there's been a fatality or any serious injuries. People inside safe rooms are safe. Now you may say, well, I heard on the news last year in Arkansas somebody died in a safe room. They died in a structure that they called a safe room. This was not a real safe room. The most important part of a safe room is the door, the hinges, and the locks. That safe room in Arkansas, most of the structure stood up and held together, but the door was not the right kind of door. The locks were not the right kind of locks. The hinges weren't the right kind of hinges, and so that's where the failure happened. Sometimes people will be shopping for a safe room, and they start to get down to the nitty-gritty with the price, and they're like, well, the real door that you need is $1,000 or $1,500, but we also have this door for $500. Don't skimp on the door. The door is the important part, whether it's an in-ground shelter or an above-ground shelter. I would put my family in any one of these shelters and feel confident that they would be okay. There's this myth that came out after the May tornadoes that, some tornadoes are not survivable unless you're below ground. And some people took that to mean, well, gosh, even my safe room is not safe. I just spent $5,000 on a safe room and it's not safe because now the tornadoes are all of a sudden they're worse than they've ever been and there's some weird thing going on. No, safe rooms are still safe. It has to be a real safe room. It has to be built correctly. It has to be built by a reputable contractor to the FEMA specifications. There's very specific specifications out there you can go online and find. So if you're going to go shopping for a safe room or have a safe room installed, do your homework first. After tornadoes happen, lots of people swarm into the area, and not all of them may be doing things exactly right. But safe rooms are still just as safe as they were before May of 2013. Underground shelters, already talked about this a little bit, but hundreds, if not thousands of people are alive today because of these. Again, the door is the weak spot on these. They can be. So you want to be sure that door is locked and secured. If you've seen the beginning of the movie Twister where the dad's trying to hold the door, I've heard real stories where that really does happen. I've never heard of anybody being, carried off or anything like that, but you want to be sure that door is secure. And contrary to popular belief or what you hear on television, you can survive a tornado above ground. You can survive just about any tornado above ground. Get in, get down, cover up. Get in a sturdy building on the lowest floor. Put as many walls between you and the tornado as you can. And that's the safety rules have not changed. That's what they were on May 18th of 2013. That's what they were on June 1st of 2013. Nothing has changed. The tornadoes have not changed. The safety rules are exactly the same. So again, just to review some of the stuff we talked about earlier, find your shelter wherever you are. Put as many walls between you and the outside as you possibly can. What kills and injures people in tornadoes is the flying and falling debris. So make it hard for that debris to get to you. Get as low as you can, get as far inside as you can. If you've got a desk, if you've got a dining room table or a desk at school or a workbench or whatever, anything that you can get under to keep that flying debris or falling debris from falling on you is going to protect you. There's a lot of children that were in those schools on May 20th, 2013. It may not have been part of their official safety plan, but they got under desks, pushed up against walls. That saved lives that day. Every little bit helps. Every little bit that can cushion you and slow it down. If you've got a helmet, wear a helmet. Cover up with whatever you have. Hopefully you got your long pants on, your long sleeve shirt on or whatever. Get pillows, couch cushions, sleeping bags, things like that. People say, well, I'm going to drag the queen-size mattress into the bathtub and take cover with that. Well, you might want to practice that in advance. If you've ever tried to move a queen-size mattress on a nice sunny day with 2 or 3 people, that can be a challenge. So, if that's your plan, make sure you can do it. Maybe your adrenaline will help you, but, make sure it'll fit. And it's not as easy as it sounds. I prefer couch cushions, sleeping bags, and things like that. Anything that you can do to cushion yourself. Cars are tied for first in the worst places to be with mobile homes and being outside. These are cars. This picture was taken out in front of Warren Theater on I-35 just a little bit after the May 20th tornado happened. Nobody was killed in a vehicle in this tornado, but most tornadoes like this that are this big and this violent, there are almost always deaths in vehicles. We did have 8 deaths on May 31st with people in cars. From that tornado. But cars are one of the most dangerous places to be. And after people ask, well, how many tornadoes are we going to have this year? The second most popular question is, what do I do if I'm in my car and there's a tornado? Here's just a few other pictures from May of 2013. These are cars that were piled up at the emergency entrance of Moore Medical Center. It took a long time to identify where those cars came from in some cases. Some of those traveled over a half mile. There was a car on the roof of the hospital that was really difficult to find out where it came from. If you can tell me what the make and model is of that car, I'll give you a free hail scale. The cars are unrecognizable, and I've been on so many damage surveys where we find a wheel here, an axle here, a steering wheel there, and it doesn't have to be an EF5 tornado to do this. A weak tornado can roll cars, destroy cars, and you don't want to be in one. So what do you do if you're like I said, the number one question, what do I do if I'm in my car and there's a tornado? The only answer I have for you is don't be in your car if there are tornadoes. Pay attention to the weather information. Don't be there. Don't drive if there's thunderstorms, especially if there's tornado warnings out. If your plan is to drive to Oklahoma City, it's Friday evening and you got plans and you're going to take off down I-35 and go do something in the city, if there's supercells on the radar in between here and there, I'm not going. We do that for winter weather. We'll say, well, we're going to delay our plans because the roads are icy. We don't really do that as much as we should for severe weather. So pay attention to the weather information. On big tornado days, we do a pretty good job of being able to give you some window of time when we think it might happen. So on May 31st, we were really trying to beat people over the head and tell them, after 4 o'clock, don't be in your car. After 4 o'clock, be home. After 4 o'clock, dangerous storms, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that didn't get that message for some reason, but we tried. There's information out there. There's really no excuse to just drive blindly and unaware into a tornado or a severe thunderstorm anymore. With radar on your phone, with television, with the internet, with everything that's going on, all the information that's out there, just pay attention to that information. Delay your trip, leave early if you can, stay late if you can, don't drive into storms. If you're on the road and you encounter a storm and you weren't expecting it, for goodness sakes, don't keep driving into it. If there's dark clouds ahead and you see cars coming back out of the storm with their headlights on and big balls of ice on the hood of their cars and broken windshield, no, even if it's not that bad. I mean, you don't want to go plowing into a storm and not know what's in there. Just stop. Get some additional information, especially if there's a tornado warning. Stop and find sturdy shelter. You're better off being at a truck stop, a restaurant, or something like that and waiting the storm out than driving into it. This is northbound I-35 between Norman and Moore on May 20th. There's the big violent tornado over there. The reason most of these cars are stopped is because the Highway Patrol has the interstate blocked. They block the interstate to let the tornado cross. Thank goodness, because some people, we've seen so many videos of people that just don't seem to know what's going on at all or not paying attention. They would have driven right into it, likely, or possibly. So, and of course, there's some people that are just out taking pictures and video too. That's going on as well. You can't predict what happens when you get in your car. Like I said before, many people got in their cars and had the most horrific experience of their entire life. They were not hit by a tornado, but they were scared to death being trapped in traffic in the car with a storm that did have a 2.5 mile wide tornado, softball size hail, flooding rains, 80 to 100 mile an hour winds bearing down on them. And there's absolutely nothing you can do. I get stressed out leaving a football game in the traffic. So, if I'm in traffic for 5 minutes and it's like, come on, move, I would have lost my mind in that situation. So you cannot predict it. The people that got in their cars and drove away, they never expected that. They didn't expect they're going to be caught in traffic until 2 o'clock in the morning, not get home until 2 o'clock in the morning. They thought they were just going to drive down the road a couple of miles and be out of the way of the tornado and, it'd all be fine. There's traffic. If you're thinking about driving away from the tornado, other people are thinking about it too. And especially like here in Stillwater, if everybody decides they want to do something like that at the same time, you may think that it takes you 10 minutes to get to your aunt's house who's got a storm shelter over on the east side of town somewhere. You may not ever get there if there's a lot of traffic. This is another problem. People park under overpasses. This is I-35 northbound at Rock Creek Road in Norman. That's not a tornado, by the way. That's a windshield wiper or something. But there was a tornado warning out at this time, and just up the road, including at my house, there was baseball-sized hail and larger falling. Well, people decided, I'm not driving my car into that, so they stop under the overpasses, and they're protected, but all the poor people behind them are just left out there sitting ducks. So overpasses are not hail shelters or tornado shelters. So you can't predict any of that happening. So you may think it'll take you a few minutes to get where you're going in your car, but you may have a life-changing experience out there trapped in your car. Worst case scenario, you're in your car, there's a tornado bearing down on you. What do you do then? Do you get in a ditch? Do you get under an overpass? Do you stay in the car? Do you get in a culvert? Do you get in a drainage area? All of those are bad options at that point. So one of those options might save your life. You might be able to stay in your car and survive. You might be able to get into a ditch and survive. But you don't know. You wouldn't survive if you were laying down in the front seat of this car or this car. These people might be okay, but we had 12 people that drowned on May 31st of 2013, taking shelter from a tornado in drainage ditches. 12 people drowned. They left their homes and apartments that were otherwise untouched by the storm and drowned in a drainage ditch, taking shelter from the tornado. So again, the only good answer is don't be in your car if there are tornadoes. Now, especially if you're new to the area, this may sound like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? Why am I living in Oklahoma? It's really not that bad. You can survive tornado season here. You just have to have a plan. Thinking about it a few minutes today makes all the difference. Monitor the weather and then take shelter. Don't be the guy that's sitting on the couch waiting for the siren to go off when the debris is hitting his window. When it's time to take shelter, go take shelter. On average, Payne County is in 1, maybe 2 tornado warnings in an average year. That may be an hour and a half of your life. Go read a book, play cards, play Words with Friends or Candy Crush or something on your phone for 45 minutes and just wait it out. It's not that big of a deal to take shelter from a tornado if you have a plan.